Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Old Time Rock and Roll. I'm your host, David Tear, where I've been featuring my personal top 3,000 songs of the rock era from 1954 to 1999. And today I'm up to song number 2598, and this is another Beatles song. I think my 12th on this list so far, 12th out of 91, if I'm not mistaken. And this one is Getting Better. And this was released in 1967. It wasn't released as a single, but it was released on what I think was their most popular album, or at least their most well known, the Sgt. Pepper album. Actually, full title Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I'm sure most, if not all of you, are familiar with this album. Just about everybody in the world owned it when it came out. Considered one of the greatest rock albums of all time. Probably the first concept album, and it was the first album the Beatles released after they stopped touring when they kind of went psychedelic. They might have even started the whole psychedelic music. I don't think they started it, but they were very instrumental in it. And here's a picture of the Beatles during their Sergeant Pepper phase. They kind of changed their persona, came up with these new uniforms. And I guess that was sort of their alias, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Decided to start a whole new image, which I think worked pretty well. I mean, one thing that's amazing about the Beatles was that they were great all around. I mean, they were great and they were diverse. I mean, their later, I'd say the later half of their career was from 1967 until they broke up in 1970. And they just that was a huge departure from the early stuff from like 63 to 66. The early period of the Beatles, they had more of a clean cut image. Of course they did, get more experimental during that time, but I'd say that their experimental, period was really the latter half of their career as a band. And I guess I'll just start by, I already, like I said, I've featured 12 songs by the Beatles already, so I don't think I have to say anything more about them as a band. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about this song, Getting Better. This was, I remember listening to this when I was a kid. I mean, my sister and I had the Sergeant Pepper album, I think in 1972. My uncle bought my sister and me a bunch of, the first rock and roll albums we ever owned. And one of the first was a Sergeant Pepper album. And, this is the fourth song on this album on side A and or side one. I think they name LP size by numbers, if I'm not mistaken. It's the 45s that have the letters, but it's a good song. I like it. It's very upbeat, very cheerful, and I like the message of this song. It's getting better all the time, and I can say personally that this has been true of my life. I'd say my life hasn't been a straight line, but I'd say my life has been getting better and better. I'm probably right now. This is probably the peak of my life, believe it or not. Even though I'm 62 years old, I mean, my childhood really sucked. I don't want to get into that, but that's sort of what the message of this song. They talk about their difficulties before. He's saying he used to be an angry young man, and then the last verse he says he used to be cruel to his woman and beat her and kept her from the things she loved. So he's a pretty cruel guy. And I learned a couple interesting things about this song today. Actually, I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it was written like most of the Beatles songs by John Lennon and Paul McCartney, but I think it was mostly John who wrote the lyrics, and I know that last verse he was speaking about himself. Apparently, he was a pretty cruel person in real life. I didn't realize this before, but he said that he was speaking from personal experience. He did used to beat his woman, and I learned something else a long time, maybe a couple of years ago, about John Lennon. It was kind of a shock to me. I watched a documentary where they said that John Lennon nearly beat one of his friends to death in a bar brawl in 1964. Pretty shocking, considering he was such a big proponent of world peace and love. I don't know if that makes him a hypocrite or not. I also heard he was very materialistic, even though in the song Imagine he's saying Imagine no possessions. So I don't know exactly what was going on with John Lennon. I still salute him for his music. I mean, whatever he was like as a person, I think he made up for it many, many times over with his music. And he wasn't the only violent rock and roll musician. I think Roger Daltrey, the Who, was a lot like that, probably even worse. So, I mean, I guess he was a little. I wish I'd been a little kinder person. But was there anything else I want to say about this song? Um, Kind of interesting. This is song number 2598. I started at 3000, and I think the songs on my list are getting a little bit better already. Maybe you guys can tell me what you think. Anyway, oh, there's one more thing I wanted to say about this song. It also pertains to John Lennon. Apparently, he was high on LSD when they were recording this song, and I think the band members knew he was high on LSD. He said he was sick and he excused himself, and I think he even went up to the roof of the building. He was just about ready to jump off, but the Beatles rescued him. They knew he was high on acid, and they kept him from jumping off the roof, which was a good thing. So he lived another 13 years, unfortunately. He got murdered in 1980. We all know about that. But anyway, that completes my profile on Getting Better by the Beatles. Thank you for watching. You guys rock. I'll finish with a little cool psychedelic graphic here. And I'll see you guys next time.